It's one of the most iconic Irish success stories, and as it turns 40, a new documentary looks at the story of Ryanair. It was written and directed by Browne and features Michael Connaughton, who's former head of social media for Ryanair, and both join me now this morning. Morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
So, Michael, we have you on the line. Aisling, we've got you here in studio with us. So I'll probably start with you, Aisling. First of all, I was saying that I watched part one and it's really good. It's
Great.
really good. And I didn't know that. We were just chatting before while the song was on that RTE now put part two up as well. So people can actually go in and watch part two. It's already on the player. And,
That's right,
And
yeah.
has been on since programme one went out.
1 and 2 both dropped on the player last Monday evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the reaction? Are you kind of happy with people's reaction to it so far?
Yeah, delighted with people's reaction. It's gone down really well, and I think, like we were saying in the corridor,
Yeah.
what people find interesting, particularly in episode 1, is most people don't know the history of Ryanair.
Yeah.
Don't know actually who is Ryan.
Yeah.
And there's 2 Ryans and there's multiple Ryans, and so I think that part of the storytelling it was a revelation for me. I didn't know a lot of that, so that was really interesting to get into, and into the kind of like, you know, Ireland 40 years ago, it's such a different place to now. So as we started unpacking that archive, it was like, oh, there's a whole world here that I think a lot of people
And
aren't
had you
familiar
been
with.
a Ryanair fan, a Michael O'Leary fan, or you're just a documentary maker that knew that there was a story there? Like, where did the kind of draw come from to make this?
So, I mean, the program had already been commissioned. So all 3 media came to me. I'd already done a project with them, and they had already had the commission. And I thought, okay, Ryanair, like, it's a big name. This is a big business story. Everyone knows who Michael O'Leary is. This is going to be interesting. But as soon as we started digging into kind of looking at all around it, and like I say, it was the archive, really looking at that original flight of Ryanair. It was like, God, Ireland is so different now to then.
yeah.
And so that's incredibly
And the
interesting.
part that they played in that.
Yeah.
The part that Ryanair played in
Totally.
that. And I'm conscious, so maybe for people who haven't seen programme 1 that went out last Monday, maybe set the scene of the beginnings of Ryanair for us.
I mean, I guess it's you know, it's mid-80s Ireland. It's kind of a miserable country at the time, as we all know. And flying really is for the elite. It's for the well-off. No one's flying anywhere. And there isn't really an option. There isn't really anything else for the consumer to go for. And so I guess it was just, you know, smart men with a bit of gumption behind them spotting an opportunity and seeing as well, like, not only where Ireland is going, but having the insight to see like where Europe is going. Like things are going to change here, and we've got to get ahead of that.
Aer Lingus weren't happy when Ryanair started raising their head and kind of really took them on and wanted to challenge them. And it was Transport Minister Seamus Brennan. I did not know this story either.
Yeah.
So tell us about that, how he stepped in and what it meant for Ryanair.
At the time, there was a lot of protection in the government for Aer Lingus. Aer Lingus, I think, was seen as this big symbol for Ireland. We don't have much, but we have this great airline, and there was a lot of effort and energy and support put behind that. And they very much wanted to protect that. And I can understand that too. But what that meant was that there wasn't perhaps the efficiencies there that could have been. And there needed to be something for the consumer. There needed to be a counterbalance to that to try and, you know, bring prices down for the consumer. And, you know, I think eventually Seamus Brennan saw the importance of that and kind of created a bit of space for Ryanair then to be able to take off.
We can't talk about Ryanair. I mean, it was Tony Ryan and Christy Ryan at the beginning, and the 2 Ryan sons, which is hence where the name came from. But we can't talk about Ryanair without talking about Michael O'Leary, and he's the most hands-on CEO maybe in the world, I would suggest. What did you learn about him and meeting him and for this doc? Did you?
Well, didn't meet him. No, he declined taking part. He said it would be like pulling a collective fluff out of our navels or something like that.
Right.
Which I have to respect the honesty in a letter like that. No, so
that was addressed to you.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
nice. Okay.
But what I did learn about him is he is a man who has incredible focus, and I think it is he who has transformed it into you know, a kind of a small airline with an ambition into the massive success story that it is today. And despite how you might feel about, you know, his persona, he gives a lot of shtick to the media and all of that, but like, he's incredibly focused and incredibly sharp, and you have to give credit where it's due.
Okay. Well, listen, one man who does know what it's like working with Michael O'Leary is Michael Corcoran, who is former head of social media for Ryanair and the man behind many a viral tweet. Michael, how was it working with Michael O'Leary for you?
I think everyone's perception is probably the reality of working with Michael O'Leary. I didn't have much engagement with him, thankfully, for good, for bad, for worse. I had more time with the likes of Eddie Wilson, who was the CEO of Ryanair too, but he did really set the tone from the top down and actually worked from the bottom up. So he was very hands-on. He was somebody who always looked for efficiencies, always looked for things to be done fast, and always looked for a better offer on the table when it came to negotiations. And look, I think the big thing, what you'll see throughout the documentary, and maybe when you look at what we were doing in the world of social media, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree because Michael O'Leary has been so synonymous with gaining publicity, and you'll see this in the documentary, particularly in part two as well, to generate free marketing. And when you look at the tone of voice, the things, the topics we talked about, the language that we use, you can definitely see the character that was the Ryanair admin and social media was very close to probably the tone of Michael himself.
Well, tell us about the direction you took with it then when you were in charge of social media, because we know now, and it's easy now because all you hear now when it comes to social media: disrupt, cut through, stand out from the crowd. But as you say, back then, that is what Michael O'Leary was doing. So when it came to social media, Michael, was he kind of as hands-on with that as he was with everything else in the airline, or did he just find people as ballsy as him that went, you know what, take it in the direction that you want to go?
See, this is the strange thing. Social media is probably the only thing he didn't have his hands on as much. Now, don't get me wrong. When he wanted something public, he put it public, and when we were told, we jumped as high as we could. But he actually worked from a distance with Ryanair, or with social, because he lets on he doesn't know what it is, but I think he did. And once we started to show him that we can do exactly the same thing you have been doing for the best part of 25 years, but on social media for free, he started to get a liking towards it. And he probably did give us a little bit more freedom than other areas of marketing and communications, purely because we did exactly what he would do.
And were there any tweets that you thought pushed it very, very close or over the edge, that landed? Well, let's talk about the ones that landed that he was happy with, and maybe the ones that didn't land too well with the public.
Well, that's probably all of them too, I'd say. It was an interesting one because, like, personally, there's probably lots of the content we put out there that I wouldn't necessarily have said right, but we were playing characters.
Like what? Like what?
Oh, I don't know. There was ones where we were having a bit of play on a recreational activity that one of the royal family members were into. And if you Google search Ryanair Prince William, I won't explain that on live radio. I don't think it's good for anybody. But there was definitely ones around Downing Street, the party gates in the the late 2021 during COVID.
During COVID,
where, yeah. So they were having a lovely little time in Downing Street when travel was decimated, the whole industry was on its feet, and these guys were happily having a party. So we obviously decided to have a poke at it. But if you look at it, the language that we use is probably way too far for a normal corporate brand to put out there. And again, I don't think I can use some of those words on live radio. And there was one reference to Maggie Thatcher that probably I get arrested these days for. But it was content like that he saw that we knew what he did, because we were playing this irreverent, self-deprecating voice that was talking about topics that were happening in the news cycle that everybody wanted to say, but nobody else would say it. And again, if you put two and two together, that pretty much sounds like what Michael O'Leary would do.
Were you surprised, Michael, when he declined to be a part of the documentary?
Not at all. Not at all. If he was given like executive producer and he was allowed to sit in front of the computer and do the full edit, he would have said yes.
Okay.
But the fact that he can't control the narrative means that he would approach with an air of caution. But look, as Aisling read out with the letter, in true Michael fashion, he still managed to get his charm and wit into the documentary without actually doing anything.
Well, the woman who was in charge of the narrative, Aisling. So tell us what's coming up in tonight's episode.
So tonight is kind of looking at the 2000s onwards. So we've just seen them at the end of part one get a huge wad of cash after their successful IPO flotation. They've bought a bunch of planes and things are really taking off. They're expanding into Europe. The EU has become what it is now. And we start to see a lot in the noughties of, a lot of Michael's shtick in terms of his engagement with the media. And really that's a clever kind of way of not spending any money on advertising, but letting everyone know exactly who you are and what your intention is. And I think throughout part two, you see just how, regardless of what political, social, economic challenges going on, what Ryanair have always been really good at, and credit where it's due, is kind of weaving and ducking around each and every one of those challenges. And you just can't help but be a little bit impressed by that.
What do you think is the future for Ryanair? I'll ask both of you this, because they've come through COVID, they've come through so many other stumbling blocks. Climate change is probably the biggest one. The passenger cap, we've heard him giving out about that, and now that's been lifted. But like, what do you think? Where is the future for Ryanair?
I mean, it's a difficult one. I think Michael has created such a kind of a well-oiled machine, and I think generally people think he loves what he does. There's no sign of him retiring anytime soon, and I think he'll probably have to be dragged out of there. But I think he's created such a well-oiled machine that I think, regardless of who comes next, the thing is done, the thing is made. It's just keeping it going. And in terms of their, the broader stroke challenges, I mean, it's going to be the same that everyone else is facing, and climate change obviously is the big one, and what is aviation's role within that. And it's going to require a lot of investment and a lot of coordinated effort for a lot of different people to actually realistically, tackle that.
Michael?
Yeah, I agree. Like, once he's at the helm, Ryanair will be fine. And I'll give you a bit of context, because now is a very sticky period for the airline industry. There's a lot more competition out there who are copying the Ryanair model, but they don't have the smarts of what Michael and a lot of the team in there do. And a couple of examples are that Ryanair is such a cash-rich business where every other airline is decimated with debt, and they're borrowing to keep afloat. And every national airline has been bailed out nearly every time there's an issue. Then you have things like hedging fuel. So they're incredibly smart at buying fuel at cheaper prices ahead of time, which means that as the price of fuel goes up, and probably in this period right now, they have a safety cushion for a certain amount that they bought. They bought fuel at a really low price, which means they can be competitive. And one last piece, because they're cash rich, is there is a new aircraft coming out called the MAX 10.
Yes.
I sound like a bloody Ryanair spokesperson now. This is brilliant. The MAX 10 is essentially a bigger aircraft that uses less fuel and is more sustainable in the air. That means Ryanair will, I think, get 12 more seats on the plane, burn 20% less fuel. And if they, again, build the operation as lean as they can, they'll be able to convert those seats into cheaper seats no matter what everybody else does. So whilst they're going through like a tricky period now where everything's really competitive, going forward, they're always going to be better on price, and they always future-proof, and they're always so smart at doing it.
Okay.
And like Aisling said, there's definitely a stable of hopefully 4 or 5 young to middle-aged bucks there who will be able to actually carry this forward. But Ryanair will be fine. It is one of the most ruthless, smartest operations you will ever meet. And if you ever have the privilege of getting in the middle of it, it is wonderful.
And no doubt Michael O'Leary is turning all those those young bucks into a version of himself. Listen, Turbulence, the story of Ryanair, continues tonight on RTE1, 9:35. Both episodes now available on the RTE player. Aisling Browne, writer and director, and Michael Connaughton, former head of social media for Ryanair. Thanks so much for chatting to us this morning.
Take care.